Today's speaker has been involved in the design field for over 33 years and developed his approach very early on based on solid principles that deliver results. His expertise is in residential and commercial design, lighting design, custom furniture design, and all other aspects that relate to interiors. His greatest love is in residential interiors because of their personal nature. He has had his work presented and published in the Baker Furniture Catalog entitled the Macmillan Collection, which was an extensive selection of furniture drawn from the practice of one of America's most prestigious design firms, the over 85-year-old firm of Macmillan Incorporated, New York. He is a personal tailor to his clients by bringing out the best in them and their environments. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the owner and founder of Spectrum Interiors and the author of the forthcoming book, The Magic of Ambiance: How to Bring Your Interior Design Dream to Life, Stephen C. Adamko.
Hi, I'm Steve Adamko, the owner and founder of Spectrum Interiors. What I want to focus on is the design seminars that we offer, and they range in time from an hour to 3 hours. And I want to kind of take a little bit of time and focus on the 3-hour one and the 12 topics or areas of interest that we cover. It really is focusing on the process of interior design so that people understand what it takes to do a design job and have it turn out really, really well, or actually hit the target that's established. So the number one thing that we start out with is the dream, and it's really your dream. It's about what you want, what you need, maybe what you want that you don't think that you can have, but at this point we want to be very creative and open because you never know what might happen. So we don't want to put any constraints on your imagination at this point. We want to kind of let it free will and see what we come up with. So it's all about you at this point, you know. And of course, it's all about you at every point of the design process, but we really want to focus on you because you're the pivot point of the whole design concept, because it's the environment that you're going to live and reside in, and it also forms the backdrop for you. So that's number one. The number two is we're going to focus on the discovery journey. And really, it's kind of like a journey because most people have never really thoughtfully considered what it is they totally want to accomplish. You know, like somebody might say, well, I want it to feel cozy and comfortable. Well, what does that mean to you? And how is that going to actually develop in a tangible way so that all the elements of that environment all add up to what it is that you wanted in the first place? So that's important to go through that process, which incorporates a lot of questions, the right kind of questions, great answers, detailed answers, so that we can get the end result. So it's a very critical step of discovery. It's kind of like what a lawyer would do in a sense, you know. You want to find out the facts, the givens, the things that you have to deal with, the things that can change in an environment or a structure, what things are important to you, what things can't you live without, how do you live now, how do you want to live in the future, what kind of changes might be in the future. We want to be able to accommodate those. Then number three would be your lifestyle statement. Well, this functions kind of like a mission statement or a business statement. So we want to take the information that's been culled from talking about your dream and about what you want, and then all the things that came from the discovery process, and put them in a paragraph that talks about what it is we want to accomplish, the look, the ambiance, the feel, the emotions. We want to really define this in a very descriptive way so that we have a yardstick, so to speak, for measuring everything that happens from there on out to the end of the design process. So it's very important that we get this mission statement because it eliminates a lot of the fluff and a lot of the things that you really don't need to take your time up with. You don't need to look at certain things, and there's a host of materials and furniture and lighting and things to go through, and most people would be totally overwhelmed if they were able to go through all the things that are totally available in the world today. So that helps to alleviate a lot of the extraneous details that aren't necessary to the project, and quite frankly, it will eliminate a certain amount of stress to certain people. You know, especially people who feel overwhelmed. So we want to create a very comfortable process where stress really isn't a part of that. Okay. Now, closely allied with that is the budget, or what I would call your vested interest, because you surely have a vested interest in the amount of money that you want to invest in a project. So the idea is that we don't want to spend your money, in a sense, just merely spend it. We want to invest it with a view towards a return on your investment, and that return can happen in a lot of different ways. It could be, you know, intellectually stimulating, emotionally satisfying, visually pleasing. We want to be able to factor in all these things and create this sense of completeness, and that you feel totally satisfied with the end result. So, and then we want to make sure that we're being very honest about the budget, because there's no sense designing a room for $100,000 when you only have a budget for $15,000, or maybe, you know, less than that. It depends on the situation. So sometimes a budget isn't, it's important, but sometimes with a lower budget, one has to be much more creative in order to get the essence of it. And so if I can tie it back with the dream and the things that were brought out with the discovery process, now you can see a little bit of how this ties together. So, you know, if you focus on the ambiance or the essence of the design, then you know exactly where to compromise if one has to, or compromise temporarily where we can institute something later on as money becomes available, but it really helps the creative process immensely. So it doesn't matter how much money is available, whether you're, you know, you just are kind of in a middle income situation or you're a multimillionaire. It really doesn't matter. Everybody should have a budget to work within, if at all possible. And we want to be truthful about that. We don't want to be, you know, pie in the sky, well, I can do this, or I didn't realize that was going to cost that much. Well, that's why all these processes and prior steps that I've just enunciated so far are so important to making that work correctly. And all these processes, all these steps are really tied in together. They're really tied in together just like the human body is tied together. One thing is connected to something else, either directly or indirectly, but it's all part of the whole process, the whole design. That brings us to the importance of a master plan. The master plans are important from this standpoint. Not everybody can do a design job in one fell swoop. A lot of people have to take 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 10 years, and maybe sometimes 20 years to fully develop the concept. And it's important to have a concept. I saw a quote just recently where you know, a clear picture of a fuzzy concept, that's just not going to work, is it? So anyway, master plans are important because they are the guiding principle. You know, it forms the trajectory, so to speak, from point A to point B. So we don't want to deviate. That's why all those prior steps are so important to defining the target, so we can hit the target in the bullseye perfectly. Okay? So now, once you start to get that in place, then it's going to be revolving around certain things like backgrounds. You know, how to become a gem in your own setting. Well, what does that mean? Well, let's just take a diamond ring, for example. You are the diamond, but how that diamond is set in a surrounding, like you know, there's all kinds of designs for rings, but certain settings are going to bring out the fullness of that diamond, the color, the clarity, the fire. Okay, so we want to make that important because, quite frankly, you're the one that's most important here. So there's lots of backdrops and backgrounds, textures, colors, things of that nature that will really bring out the best in you. And we all know that certain people look good in certain colors. Well, they also look good or not by what is surrounding them, because you may look from your eyes out, but other people are looking at you in the context of your environment. So it's important not only what you see, but how others see you in your environmental 3D stage setting, surround environment. Okay, so and then there's things that such as space planning, form and flow. Well, the space planning is incredibly important, especially if you're dealing with a new house or a new space or a new office or something of that nature. Other times you have an existing building or home that has a layout that, you know, maybe you can't change. In some cases there are walls that can be removed or reallocated or whatever, or the space can be reconfigured to function a lot better. And really, if you take a floor plan, let's say a condo, for instance, and two condos have the same footprint, they look the same, they could be mirror images of each other, but how that interior space is configured is going to make one of those condos a winner for you and the other one not a winner for you. Okay, so it's very important that the floor plan, the way the walls and doors are allocated, work well for your lifestyle, how you flow through a space, whether you do entertaining or not. It's incredibly important. As a matter of fact, in the seminar I show a room, same size, and change up the door and window openings, and that determines the traffic flow from, you know, different points into the room and through a room. And so it can either open up space for larger groups, or it can cut it up into small pieces that it's not worth hardly anything. And then sometimes you have to reconfigure and redirect the traffic flow with the furniture arrangement. But again, everything takes place within an architectural confine. So that is the foundation of a good room or a good environment. So we cannot overlook the importance of good, strong architecture in an environment. Okay, after that, we're talking about windows and dressing your windows. Now, windows are kind of a transitional element, so to speak. They function as architecture, and they function as other ways to add accessorization to a space in a big format, because it can be draperies, lambrequins, all blinds, shades, all kinds of things that factor into what the ultimate ambiance is that you want to achieve. So, and sometimes you have to change the appearance of the proportion of the windows to better coincide with the room or what you're doing. So sometimes there's things you do that are what I call sleight of hand. You make a window look wider or taller than it actually is, and you do that with window treatments. And so that's an extremely creative aspect to look at with somewhat of an architectural eye, so that that money particularly is invested correctly, because one can spend a lot of money on window treatments. Also, lighting is another big topic that we discuss and help people realize that lighting is important for not only the look of the space, but all the emotion that you promote with it. And quite frankly, you can destroy a room with the flick of a switch. Pretty powerful, isn't it? Many homes, they're designed People move things in, but never has there been any consideration to how to light that space. Or many people have, placed fixtures or cans, as we call them, in places, and the lighting still doesn't work correct. Well, let's back it off and realize that it's the lamp or the light bulb that does the job. And with every lamp and light bulb, there's different what we call photometrics about it. There's beam spread, there's intensity, there's the color of the light, whether it's an A lamp and incandescent, whether it's PAR 36, whether it's MR16. They all have different color temperatures. That's why materials will look different. You'll find it in many cases in a jewelry store. They might have low voltage lighting, or these MR16 little tiny bulbs that are mirror faceted that are balanced throughout the color spectrum, because they want to make that diamond look phenomenal. And as light's put through a diamond, it separates into its respective color bands, which is where we get the rainbow from, and the color circle and all of that. So that's very important. And also the direction of lighting, how it hits a piece of artwork, a sculpture, how it comes down on furniture, all is important, and especially zoning lighting, so that you can enhance different concepts, different moods, different atmospheres at different times of the day. Very important to kind of plan that aspect in as well. Then we talk about coloring your world, and we go into the whole aspect of color. And you've got color, you've got pattern, you've got texture, and how those are all interrelated and how they function together. And there's a lot of things that go on with different color trends and things of that nature. But what we really want to concentrate on is strongly on the individual. And so color trends and fads, well, they come and go. So sometimes when people get caught up into that, I mean, it can be good to a certain point, but then everybody jumps on the same bandwagon, and then pretty soon everybody, you and your neighbor, have the same type of look because that's what's hot now. And that's not how, in my opinion, interior design should be approached, because there's a lot more to your environment than just that. So you are a unique individual, a unique person, and therefore it should be approached just as uniquely, just like a tailored suit, just like a special dress that is made just for you and no one else, or for a guy, a custom-made suit, measured and tailored for nobody but him. Okay, so that's how that's how I look at things. I'm very individualistic about this, and does it take a little bit more time? Yes, it does. One could say, well, I'm just going to do this because that's a hot trend for now, and then everybody is so duplicatable that there's no personalization to that. So you look at all the colors in the world, all the textures and things like that. There's no reason why you can't be unique, as each snowflake is unique. The other thing is textural orchestration. Texture is the greatest modifier of formality or informality. And so that's the one element that is so often overlooked and underutilized. Most people think of color and pattern. Well, that can be nice to a degree, but most people are tactile people. They like to feel and touch things. And the textural orchestration, or the variety of texture, orchestrated just right, brings a strength and a richness to even the most simplest interior. Even if it's a monochromatic color scheme, texture is incredibly important to deliver the end result. And so what we want to do is kind of bring that involvement of people into it. I like to use an analogy sometimes for a newborn baby. Most of the time, women will just hold a baby for a long, long time, and somebody else might want to say, "Oh, let me see him or her," and so they reluctantly give up the baby. But watch closely. A lot of times, women be rubbing the arm or the leg, continuously, and do they ever stop and say, "Oh, I've had enough of that"? Because the baby skin is so soft and just ultra silky, and even the smell of a baby. So these are all things that are important to connect with in your environment. So that's part of what ambiance is all about, that intangible essence. So then after the texture orchestration, we talk about accessorizing. And here, the little things mean everything. And really, you know, what woman would disagree with that? You know, little things mean a lot. So a lot of times, you know, we might be involved in doing furniture plan and furniture selection and all the architectural stuff that goes into it, as far as architectural backgrounds like designing custom moldings and things of that nature, or custom furniture. But at a certain point, you know, many people think, well, I can't handle that part of it by myself, but I can do the accessorization by myself. Well, the accessorization phase is a mini version, so to speak, of the major element that you just finished up. And so the types of things that are selected, the colors, the textures, yes, you want to have personal interest with objects because they personalize a space. But we wanted to personalize that space from the very beginning all the way to the very end. So it's important to look at that aspect, and then how you position accessories. Sometimes they can not say anything, and then you adjust the positioning so they have a closer proximity to each other, and it's just, but they come together like you know, kind of like the Three Musketeers, you know, all for one and one for all, and they make a big impact more than just that individual. So that's why backgrounds come into play again, and backgrounds could be, you know, a cocktail table, a side table. It could be marble, it could be wood, it could be, your eye is looking down on those elements. Just like originally when I talked about the backgrounds were so important. Well, when you look at a space, you know, there's a lot of furniture that you're seeing that the wall and the floor are both a backdrop in your line of vision. So it's important that the color and the texture and everything enhance the fabric on the sofa or the upholstery or the shapes of furniture, whether they be, you know, upholstered goods or case goods or art or sculptures or what have you. So this is very, very important. So a lot of times people will say, oh, I can handle that part of it. But the interesting thing of it is many times they've gotten to a certain altitude, like in an airplane, they've gotten to 30,000 feet, but then they say, okay, let me take over. So together we get up to that altitude, and then they say, oh, let me jump in the cockpit here, and let me jump in the pilot's seat, and I'll take over from here. Well, training has a certain amount to do with keeping everything at stable and in flight at a certain altitude. So it's the same thing here, and I've seen many times where they said, well, I'm going to take over from here, and the whole concept just starts to, you know, go right downhill, like a plane just almost dropping out of the sky. Everything that was developed up to that point is starting to disintegrate to a certain degree. Okay, so it's better to have at least a collaborative effort on that. If not, let the designer handle that and help you through that so that you get the best aspect. And it's just like, it's no different than women selecting a nice, beautiful dress. It's cut, tailored correctly. It's got the right material. It flows. It hangs nice. It's just wonderful. It's like perfect by itself. Okay. Well, then it's kind of like, okay, now we're in. After that, it's the accessorization stage, right? Necklaces, earrings, bracelets, and there's where you got to be very careful, because you can really cause it to the look to kind of fall off a little bit if you're not careful with the quality, the proportion, the size, the scale of different things, and it's so important that you decide from the very get-go what it is you want to really project. Okay, because there's a lot of different things that you can portray by taking that same dress and then putting different types of accessories with it, because that's why some people have dresses and attire that forms the basis of their wardrobe, or they always look good in black, or they always look good in this particular cut of a dress or a suit or something like that. It just brings out really the very best of them. So anyway, that gives a little bit of an overview of the 12 different aspects that I go through that compose the process of design from the very beginning of concept to the final completion, and how to get from point A to point B in an unerring, laser-like fashion, so that we going through and the end result is that we hit the target exactly. And of course there will probably be a little bit of differentiation and changes and things of that to be accommodated in that process, but again, once you have the main concept in line, it keeps you in line and on track and on target so much easier. It's kind of, I don't want to say it functions like autopilot, but it's just or like cruise control, but it sure does make the journey a lot more comfortable. So if you have any questions, be glad to answer any questions. I encourage you highly to check out my website. It's www.spectruminteriors-designs.com. All the information is there, and look forward to meeting and talking with you in the future. Have a great day.